Welcome back to the Guitar Learning Show. My name is Kevin, and today I'm going to go over a simple lesson on triads for beginners. This is going to be the first in a series of 4 lessons, and each lesson will be broken down by string set. So there's 4 types of triads. There's major, minor, diminished, and augmented. But for this lesson, we're just going to cover the major and the minor triads. We'll also cover triad inversions, how triads are constructed from a key. We'll mainly focus on triads from strings 2, 3, and 4. But we'll have future lessons that dive into other triad positions as well. A chord in its most basic form is the root, the 3rd, and the 5th note of the key. So for example, a G consists of the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. And G, of course, is the root, or the 1. And then what we're going to do is take the 3rd note in the key of G and the 5th note in the key of G. So the 3rd note is going to be the B. G's 1, A's 2, B's 3, C is 4, and D is 5. So that's how we get the G chord. It's a G, B, and a D. Example of how a chord in its basic form is only those 3 notes, so a G chord. Let's take a look at the open G chord that we all learned probably when we first started playing guitar. So open G chord. And basically what we have here is we're playing on the low E string, we're playing the 3rd fret, which is the G note, and then on the A string, 2nd fret, we are playing a B note, right? And then we're playing an open D, so that's G, B, D right there, so that's a chord. And then on the G string, we're playing that open, and then we go down to the B string, and we're actually playing the 3rd fret of the B string, which is a D note, and then down on the high E, it's exactly the same as the low E, so we're playing the 3rd fret, and that is our G. So we are playing 6 strings, but since some of those notes repeat, we have a G chord. So we have G on the fretboard. And that's the way it is for all the chords on the fretboard. And what's great is that we can play chords on only 3 strings. We don't have to manipulate so many fingers if we don't want to. Or if we're playing in a band and we have a bass player and a drummer holding down the low end, we don't really, as guitarists, we don't really need to play notes here on the low E string. We can just, we can play triads, which sometimes it makes it faster and easier to make chord changes. Okay, so what I'd like to show you is just a linear triad, the G on the D string. We looked at the 5th fret before, which is the G note. So the triad is essentially on this string is G, and then B, and then D. So that's essentially a G triad on the D string, which obviously we can't play that because it's on the same string. So we could play that on different strings. So it's important to know the notes on both the low E string and also the A string. So if we know those, then we can more easily find the notes we're looking for in our triad. Okay, so the triads exist in 3 different inversions. There's the root, the 1st inversion, and the 2nd inversion. So the 1st inversion, we've got the root here on the D string, and so that means that our G note is going to be the 1st note. And kind of the cool thing about these triads is that the notes go root, 3rd, 5th towards the high E string. So if our root is up here on the D, then our next note is going to be the 3rd, and the note after that is going to be the fifth. So we have the G, which is the root, and then the B, which is the third, and then we have the D, which is the fifth. Now that's, of course, the G major. So if we want to play minor, then we'd flatten the third in the key, which of course is the B note. And that's that note there. So instead of playing the fourth fret of the G string, we are going to bar the G string and the B string of the third fret. And then we're going to keep our ring finger back up here on the G note, which is on the D string. Okay, so that flatted third is going to sound like this. So that's the major, and that's the minor. That's the flatted. So here's what it sounds like: G, B flat, and D. The G minor. So G major. Okay, so that's the root. And now we'll move up and play the first inversion. So to play that, you do have to know the notes on the B string. And that can be challenging. So I have a trick to help with that. First, let's go over where our fingers need to be. So the G note is the 8th fret of the B string. And that's right here. And then because the notes go in order from the root, we go and they go in order downward. So once you get to the B string, they now go back, they loop back up to the D string, up to the top string for the triad. So we have our G down here on the B, and then we're going to go to the third, which is going to be where my ring finger is here, up on the D string, and that's the 9th fret. So that's a B. And we also know that's a B because we know the B is here on the low E. And we know that based upon the 2 fret over, 2 string down rule, that's the B. So, and then we have our index finger down here on the 7th fret of the G string, and that is the 5th. That is going to be the D. So it's G, B, and D. That, of course, is our major chord. So I did mention that there was a little bit of a trick to determining what is that note, where's the G on the B string. So if your fingers are in this position and you're using your pinky and you know your notes on the A string, and you know that the 10th fret of the A string is the D note, and then we know that the very bottom, the B string, with our middle finger, that's our G. So if we know our G's here, up here on the A string, then we know by forming this chord with your fingers, we know that the B is down here, okay? And that is a C-shaped chord in the caged system. I'm just throwing that out there. We're not getting into cage today, okay? So more simply, it's 3-note chord. So that's major. Now, how would we play that same chord in its minor shape? Well, the root is still going to be down here on the B string in the 8th fret. So we said that the third's up here in the D string, but we need to flat the third in order to make that a minor chord. We're going to change our finger configuration and put our ring finger down here on the B. We're going to put our middle finger up here on the D string. and they're both going to be on the 8th fret. And then we will we'll leave our index finger here on the 7th fret of the G string. And then we have the G minor. G major, that's first inversion, G major. And then G minor, first inversion. Okay, so now we've gotten two of our positions, two of our shapes out of the way in both the G major and the G minor. Okay, so the G major in the second inversion is going to be all the way up here on the 12th fret. And this one's easy to play because all you have to do is bar down on the D, G, and B strings. So your root here is going to be the G string, and of course, if we play the 12th fret of the G string, we're just playing the octave. So it's a G. And then based upon the rule of the notes go in order downward towards the high E string, physically downward. So we have the G, and then go down to the B string, and we have the B, because of course that's the octave. And then our 5th is going to be, of course, the D note, and that is the D string, 12th fret. And then the chord sounds like this. Bright G chord. And to make that G major chord a G minor chord, we're just going to flatten the 3rd. So the 3rd, as we said, was down here on the B string. So we're going to play the octaves of both the D and the G. So what I do is I use my ring finger on the D string and I use my pinky on the G string, and then I play that B string, the 11th fret of the B string, with my middle finger. Yeah, and that sounds dissonant, that sounds minor. And the chord sounds like this. So that's it in a nutshell. Those are the major and minor G triads up the fretboard. There are also augmented and diminished triads, which we are not going to go over in this series. We might do a lesson on those down the road, but for now we are going to stick with the major and minor. So I did say that we would look at a couple of songs and we'll see how those sound. Okay, so a couple of songs, just to give you an idea of what you could do with this. I mean, you can basically play anything with triads. As I said before, if you're in a band and you've got a drummer, you've got a bass player, you know, the guitarist, and many times if you really watch what notes a guitarist is playing in a band situation, a lot of the times they're just playing triads. Instead of, like, for instance, instead of playing a full big A chord, they're just playing this triad version of it. Or to stay consistent with the lesson, the big G chord, the big G bar chord anyway, they're just playing this. And it's obviously just sounds the same, just you're missing those low notes, and that's okay. So anyway, one of the songs I wanted to look at quickly was the introduction to All Along the Watchtower, Jimi Hendrix version. And that song is using a B to a C sharp minor, back to the B to the A. And it sounds a little bit like this, using triads. So let me know what you think. Drop a note in the comments. And while I'm thinking about it, if you could like and subscribe and hit the notification bell, we would really appreciate it. Really appreciate you watching. Thanks. So I'll try one other song. Let's look at Brown Eyed Girl from Van Morrison. And the bulk of the verse of that song is G, C, G, D. So it's G chord to a C chord to a G chord to a D chord. And most of the time, at least when I learned it using all open chords. So And you can pick whatever strum pattern you like, but we'll play with the open chords first, and then we'll listen to it with triads. All right, well, let's give it a listen with just triads. Okay, well, that's all I have today on the major and minor triads on strings 2, 3, and 4. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson. I hope you've learned something today. Please drop a comment below and let us know what you think. And if you would hit that like and subscribe button, we'd appreciate that too. And look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching.